Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're not just excavating a historical event. We are really challenging the selective memory of World War II.
We are. We're plunging into one of the darkest chapters of the 20th century, a period that, for many, is just a brief footnote.
The 1937 massacre in China, the rape of Nanking.
And our deep dive into this forgotten Holocaust is built largely on the incredible research of Iris Chang. Her work was, deeply personal. Her own grandparents were survivors of the violence.
That personal connection is key, and our mission here is it's kind of multifaceted. We need to understand the shocking scale of the atrocity, of course, but we also have to
Uncover the roots, right? The deep, often overlooked historical roots of this specific brutality.
Exactly, the roots. And we also want to illuminate the extraordinary, almost unbelievable heroism we saw, and then the aftermath.
The long, painful post-war legacy of denial and historical erasure, what some observers call the second rape of Nanking.
And this source material is it's essential. Reviewers call it a powerful new work of history, an utterly compelling book.
One even said it's one of the most important books of the 20th century. It's so meticulously researched, and we're going to use it to understand how this nightmare was allowed to unfold.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to go back way before 1937. Japanese imperial ambition. This wasn't some sudden burst of rage.
Not at all. It was forged over decades of calculated military expansion across Asia.
We see them testing their strength, right?
Yeah.
Forcing a treaty on Korea in 1876 and then just crushing the Chinese naval fleet in the First Sino-Japanese War of 1894.
But the real confidence booster, the moment that fundamentally changed how Japan saw itself, was the victory over Tsarist Russia in 1905.
Beating a major European power.
It confirmed this dangerous internal belief. A leading Japanese professor at the time said this victory proved Japan was destined to expand and govern other nations.
So this sense of destiny, it gets supercharged by the economy.
It does. Crippling economic pressures in the 20s and early 30s. After World War I, military demand just dries up. And then the 1929 U.S. stock market crash hits.
Which just annihilated the Japanese silk trade, a central pillar of their whole economy.
Exactly. So they feel economically and territorially stifled. And this feeling of being cornered, it was made worse by, constant Chinese boycotts of their goods and what they saw as international shunning.
Which creates this popular narrative inside Japan that they're the victims.
Right. They're victims of an international conspiracy. So aggression gets reframed. It's not imperialism. It's necessary self-defense, national survival.
So the economic crisis sort of creates the environment for this.
Yeah, it sets the stage. But the educational system, that's what created the actual tools for the violence. This mindset was systematically baked into the young generation.
An entire military pipeline.
Absolutely.
Right.
It was all governed by the 1890 Imperial Rescript on Education. It demanded absolute unconditional loyalty to the emperor. Teachers weren't just educators, they were indoctrination officers.
The psychological programming was just so intense. I mean, textbooks were basically military propaganda. Teachers were actively instilling hatred and contempt for Chinese people, dehumanizing them long before any soldier ever set foot on the mainland.
There's one story that it gets me every time. It's a schoolboy in the 1930s. He bursts into tears because he has to dissect a frog.
A pretty normal reaction for a kid.
Totally normal. But the teacher, he doesn't comfort him. He actually slams his knuckles and yells at him. He says, "Why are you crying about one lousy frog?"
And then comes the really chilling part.
Yeah. He says, "When you grow up, you'll have to kill 100, 200 chinks."
Just unbelievable. That phrase, that specific command, it just encapsulates how the state defined a young person's value. Your purpose was to kill.
And when those boys entered the military, the training finished the job. It was all about vicious hazing, extreme beatings with these heavy wooden rods.
And the officers justified it with this twisted logic. They'd say things like, I do not beat you because I hate you. I beat you because I care for you.
It's this culture that created a worldview where obedience is everything, and life, your life, the enemy's life, is completely disposable. Right. The philosophy was, loyalty is heavier than a mountain, and our life is lighter than a feather. Once you believe that, an enemy's life becomes, much less important. All moral constraints are just gone.
So we have the systemic cruelty, the psychological readiness. How did that translate into the disaster in Nanking itself?
Well, that takes us right to the fall of the city. Nanking was China's capital, and ancient descriptions called it naturally protected, like a coiling dragon and a crouching tiger.
But those physical defenses were totally compromised by the politics.
And the leadership. Chiang Kai-shek gives command to General Tangsheng Xiamei, who was his partner and, at times, his deadliest rival. Tang was one of the few arguing for a strong defense, famously vowing to live or die with Nanking.
But he wasn't well. Reporters said when he gave that speech he looked dazed, if not doped.
And the deck was stacked against him. Chang and the entire Chinese Air Force had already evacuated, taking almost all the good communications gear with them.
Leaving the troops with no cohesion, no trust in their officers.
Then comes the ultimate disaster. On December 11th, Chiang Kai-shek issues this frantic, last-minute order for a massive, hasty retreat. He tells Tang, "You must cross the river tonight."
And Tang knew. He protested. He knew it would turn into a total rout.
But Chiang insisted. And that decision led to, and I'm quoting here, one of the worst disasters of Chinese military history. It just transformed a retreat into pure anarchic chaos.
And right as this is happening, there's a devastating shift in the Japanese command structure.
A critical one. General Matsui Iwane gets sick.
So Emperor Hirohito sends his own uncle, Prince Asaka Yasuhiko, to take command.
And as a direct royal representative, he has power that supersedes everyone else on the front.
His arrival coincides almost exactly with the shift from a conventional military conquest to a mass crime.
It does. Right after Chinese surrender negotiations were reported, Osaka's headquarters allegedly send out orders marked secret to be destroyed.
And the message inside.
Cold and categorical. Kill all captives. This was not some random decision by a platoon leader. This was an institutional directive from the absolute top.
And we have evidence of this, right? There's a written order from the 66th Battalion on December 13th.
It lays out the methodical killing. Divide the prisoners into groups of a dozen. Shoot to kill separately. They were even given a deadline.
The logic behind it was just brutally pragmatic.
Totally. The Japanese army couldn't feed the enormous number of Chinese captives, so they had to be destroyed. It solved the logistics problem and eliminated any chance of them regrouping as guerrillas.
In the middle of all this darkness, though, there are these flickers of light. A small group of Americans and Europeans who refused to leave.
They created the International Committee for the Nanking Safety Zone, just a 2.5 square mile sanctuary in the middle of this war zone.
And maybe the most confounding but heroic figure among them was John Rabe,
a German businessman, and incredibly, the local leader of the Nazi Party in Nanking.
Which is just wild. The Chinese refugees called him the living Buddha of Nanking.
And the irony is, his entire ability to save people rested on his Nazi affiliation. He used his German citizenship and his Nazi swastika armband to deter the Japanese troops.
Who were German allies? They seemed to respect, at times even fear, the Nazis of Nanking.
And he used that shield constantly. He was completely hands-on. He'd be driving around the city, and when people begged him to stop a rape or a beating, he'd get out of his car and intervene. He physically pulled a soldier off a young girl.
He turned his own backyard into a sanctuary with a whistle system so the women hiding there could alert him if intruders tried to climb the walls.
Alongside him, you have Dr. Robert Wilson, an American surgeon who stayed because he saw it as his duty. By December 7th, he was the only surgeon left in the entire city.
Performing endless amputations, working around the clock for free.
His own words are just harrowing. He called December 18th the sixth day of modern Dante's Inferno, written in huge letters with blood and rape. The scale of what he saw was, as he put it, almost beyond belief.
He and the others were running on sheer adrenaline.
And moral resolve. James McCallum wrote in his diary about chewing his tongue until it bled just to stay awake while driving ambulances.
Then you have Minnie Vautre, the American missionary. She turned Ginling College into the largest sanctuary for women and children.
The responsibility must have been overwhelming. Sometimes over 1,000 terrified refugees would pour in a single day.
And the psychological battle for her was just as damaging as the physical one. The Japanese military actively weaponized her compassion against her.
Oh, absolutely. There's this one devastating instance where soldiers used the pretense of an interrogation to get onto the campus.
Yeah.
She was cornered and pressured into handing over 21 women.
Because they promised that taking these prostitutes would stop them from molesting the innocent women. It was a calculated no-win scenario designed purely to torment her.
Yet, through all of that, she kept telling the refugees, China will not perish. China will never perish. She kept that spirit alive.
And, her prediction about the world finding out, it was true at first. American journalists provided vivid daily coverage.
Even Japanese newspapers initially celebrated it, publishing photos of killing contests before international condemnation forced the government to start hiding everything.
But what is so galling is the official complicity in silencing the truth. I mean, after the Japanese bombed the USS Panay gunboat,
The U.S. government stepped in to cover it up.
President Roosevelt himself asked a newsreel cameraman to cut 30 feet of film showing the bombing. The goal was to give credibility to the Japanese excuse of mistaken identity to help a financial settlement.
So that damning evidence was just destroyed for political convenience.
Meanwhile, the Japanese military is in Nanking doing feverish cleanup efforts, trying to remove evidence of mass murder.
And staging elaborate propaganda, forcing refugees to participate in spontaneous parades with Japanese flags for the cameras.
The missionary diaries just express total shock at this hokum. James McCallum wrote about the Japanese intimidating the Chinese into falsely blaming Chinese looters for what the Japanese army had done.
This was the beginning of the erasure.
And when it came to post-war justice, the accountability was incredibly uneven.
It was. The Nanking trial led to some executions, sure, and the Tokyo Tribunal proved Nanking was just one part of a much broader systemic brutality.
Yeah.
But the key architects?
They walked free. Emperor Hirohito and his uncle, Prince Asaka, the one who forged the kill all captives order, were granted total immunity by the U.S. government.
In exchange for Japan's swift surrender. So Asaka, a direct orchestrator, just retires quietly to play golf, untouched.
And what happened to the heroes, the foreigners who stayed? It's a devastating story.
Their post-war fates were often just as tragic as the events they witnessed.
John Rabe, the man who used a swastika to save lives, he returns to Germany and is arrested by the Gestapo. His report, Miggy's film, it's all confiscated. He's warned never to speak of it again.
And Minnie Vautrin, who inspired thousands, suffered a profound nervous breakdown from the trauma. She committed suicide in 1941, barely a year after leaving Nanking.
The psychological toll was just extreme. George Fitch, who ran the safety zone, suffered from complete amnesia when he tried to lecture about the war years later. They were victims, too.
And that tragedy continues today with this persistent historical revisionism, the second rape of Nanking. Decades later, you still see Japanese officials making comments to erase this history, claiming Japan had no intention of aggression, or that Nanking was just a part of war.
That persistence of denial, it's really something. It just justifies the urgency that drove Iris Chang to write her book, the fear that this whole thing would be reduced to a footnote.
Indeed. And if you connect that denial back to the root cause, you see the perpetrators themselves use this language of profound self-delusion to justify their crimes. General Masao.
Right, before he fell ill, he tried to explain the invasion using this shocking metaphor.
He said, "The struggle between Japan and China was always a fight between brothers. We do not do this because we hate them, but on the contrary, we love them too much."
He actually claimed, "It is just the same as in a family when an elder brother has to chastise him in order to make him behave properly."
That profoundly twisted mentality.
Yeah.
The elder brother chastising the younger brother out of love. That was the justification for the systematic slaughter of hundreds of thousands of people.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? This moment in history forces us to consider how that self-delusion claiming moral or familial superiority while committing mass atrocity isn't just a historical curiosity, it's a dangerous mechanism. It is the core function that allows systemic violence to rationalize itself even today, ensuring that the long shadow of this forgotten Holocaust continues to loom over all of us.